Hello and welcome to Jazz Across the Pond. Jazz Interviewing Reimagined, a brand new and a very exciting bringing together of two great nations. It's jazz talking like you've never seen or heard it before. Now let's bring on my partner in crime. So here we are then, another Jazz Across the Pond, Jazz Interviewing Reimagined. And it's a warm welcome from myself, Roger Lee, aka the Jazz Cat.
And I'm Kevin Goolsby, and they call me Mr. G.
Mr. G, Kevin Goolsby, the Dean Martin to my Jerry Lewis.
Oh, so if I'm your Dean Martin, I guess I'd say I'll drink to that, but no cigarettes for me.
That's nice. I like that. You're getting quick. It's good. So how are you keeping? You all right?
I'm good. I'm still excited about having had Jeanette Harris on last week.
Oh, wasn't she lovely? Absolutely wonderful.
I tell you, Jeanette Harris has got it going on. I mean, she's beautiful, she's charming, she's witty, she's got talent, she's humble, and she appreciates the blessings in her life. I mean, she's definitely a class act. She was a great interview.
Absolutely. And for anybody, we always say this, but anybody that missed last week's interview, there's no excuse. Go back to YouTube. That one's on there, and previous weeks, and there have been some fabulous interviews. So there's no excuse. Catch them up and watch them. Absolutely fabulous. I like the shirt, by the way, tonight, Kevin.
Well, thank you. It's kind of shippy looking, I would say.
A nautical look.
Now, enunciate when you say that. Nautical. Don't be so nautical.
Don't be so nautical.
Yes, it is. It's kind of that boat thing going on.
Yeah.
Well, Jazz Across the Pond, you look like hurricanes.
Yeah. Listen, I couldn't decide what color shirt to put on, so I thought, hell, just put the whole lot on there and wear it one go.
There you go. Well, there's no way we would match tonight, that's for sure.
Oh, no. So let's get back to this evening's show. I tell you what, we were going to be inviting, for fans of the wonderful, wonderful band Tower of Power. I mean, we're going to be talking about them, but we have got their keyboardist. He'll be joining us. He's literally in the waiting room now from California, and he'll be joining us. I mean, the guy has got solo albums out. He's worked with Tower of Power, and word has it, he's got his own vineyard as well.
Oh, well, we may have to have a glass or two to celebrate.
I think so too. Well, I tell you what, let's not keep him waiting any longer. Should we bring him on?
Let's do it.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Jazz Across the Pond with our very, very special guest.
Hi, everybody. My name is Roger Smith, keyboardist with the group Tower of Power, and you're watching me on Jazz Across the Pond with the Jazz Cat and Mr. G. I hope you guys enjoy it.
So it's a very good evening to Jazz Across the Pond, Jazz Interviewing Reimagined. Tonight, a very, very special guest who's joining us all the way from California. For the fans of Tower of Power, ladies and gentlemen, please extend your warm welcome to the man himself, international instrumental smooth jazz artist with genres that include smooth contemporary jazz, soul jazz, all the way from California. Ladies and gentlemen, the one, the only, Mr. Roger Smith.
Woo! And the crowd goes wild.
The crowd go wild. But we're not allowed to because it's part of the restrictions. Roger, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
It is a pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Not at all. Well, I say tonight, we're on 3 different time zones. So whatever time zone you're on, welcome along.
Well, I could open the door from my studio and you'd see this beautiful blue sky outside.
Right, I'm looking at the window. It's going dark out there.
And I'm stuck in the middle, but I'm happy.
Hey. Right, here we go then. Roger Smith, born Dallas, Texas, USA. Roger was encouraged from a very early age to take music lessons. Growing up in the rural area of Central California, where his parents were sharecroppers. You began studying, listen, we have great researchers. They do their homework. We literally give them, and away they run away, and they come back for Kevin, and they make us look clever. All right, we'll be right ahead. You began studying piano from a very early age, musical education being primarily from the church. That because of the creative limitations, you soon lost interest. However, you consider yourself to be primarily self-taught. Roger, please, would you elaborate and tell our listeners, our viewers, more about your childhood and your introduction to music, please?
Absolutely. Well, my folks, we moved from Texas when I was very young. the first stop in their migration west was Hobbs, New Mexico, where my dad cut hair and my mom did odd jobs in this very high desert place. The only thing I remember from that place were tumbleweeds. That's how rural it was. They moved from there to the Central Valley in California. Now, they weren't sharecroppers. However, they did work the fields prior to the mechanization of a certain crop, if you get my meaning. Okay, things evolved from there, and we moved up to Northern California in the town that I'm in now, the city, the capital of California, Sacramento. Then it began my musical instruction, if you will, maybe very elemental. The John Thompson's second grade reader was as far as I got in terms of any kind of piano instructional stuff. And that was a bit much for me, so I forego that, when I was of the age where I could say no.
Well, one of the things I wanted to ask you about, Roger, was so you've already talked about how your family moves to Texas. I mean, from Texas to Sacramento. That was about 1957. I think you were in sixth grade. And you had a neighborhood classmate who lived down the street from you who had an uncle who would have a very profound impact on your life. You meet jazz, blues, and soul jazz legend, Mr. Jimmy McGriff, who is a proud owner of a new Hammond B3 organ. Because what's fascinating is Jimmy McGriff had purchased his B3 the year before he met you. He teaches himself for 6 months, ultimately gets accepted at New York's prestigious Juilliard School. Now, during one of his visits, Jimmy teaches you a couple of signature blues songs, Down the Road a Piece and Little Red Rooster.
Correct.
Meeting Jimmy McGriff proves to be the genesis of your lifelong love of the Hammond B3 organ. Now, 5 years after your encounter with Jimmy, he hits it big with this cover of Ray Charles's I Got a Woman in 1961. So my question to you, and I had to ask this question, how long after hearing Jimmy McGriff's cover of I Got a Woman did you have that OMG moment? And could you share a little more about with our audience about your meeting Jimmy McGriff?
Well, I was very young. I was in the fifth or sixth grade when I first met him. My best friend was his uncle, and we went to elementary school together. And I didn't know what a B3 was. To me, it was just a church organ, right? But I've never in my life heard a church organ like that. Right. Church organs aren't supposed to be played like that. It's nearer my God to thee, et cetera, and that's what I've always grew up, a church organ sounding like. And I would go next door and they would be out on the back porch, and they had certain things in their cups that I wouldn't use to either. And my mom knew all that, what he's drinking. And but what that organ, it at a young age, it gave me a feeling I didn't understand.
Right.
It touched my soul. And at a young age, I really didn't understand the concept of my soul being touched. It was the most unusual out-of-body experience. I think the first one in my life I've ever had. And I would come home and get on my little piano and I'd try to play that stuff, much to the chagrin of my mom, who was devoutly religious. And so she didn't have any of that devil music in her house, I'll tell you. That was a big no-no. So thus began my John Thompson's foray into music. Mom insisted that I take piano lessons and play for the choir in church, et cetera, et cetera. I lasted, like I said, 2 very arduous years of piano lessons. And that's as far as I could get.
Okay. So it's in the 1960s then you served in the army and you trained as a medic. However, you continued to play your music. Your music was still never a million miles away from yourself. And you formed a blues band called Blind Melon, sitting with the blues artist Freddie King, whose regular piano playing had failed to turn up at a nightclub. Another one of those, what we refer to in England as a sliding doors moment. You had an opportunity, there it arrived, bang, you jumped in for it. What an amazing... So it's just incredible that happened. A similar thing happened to me years. I'll tell you about it later on, but never mind. You then decided to leave your job, let go to the army, and you toured with King, and then played with various other artists in blues, jazz, country, and the pop industry. I mean, you really had a wide spectrum of music they used to play. So please tell us more about these great days, and of course, and as I referred to, the sliding doors moment, whereas you could have it's almost like going to a T-junction. It's left or right, and you made a decision. Please tell us more about that.
Well, I try to truncate because within 3 to 4, maybe 5 years, my musical career, it was taking turns all over the place. And I had the opportunity, like I said, to start with the late Freddie King when his organist couldn't make it. And we were playing the infamous Armadillo World Headquarters in Austin. That's where I was. And Freddie's organ player couldn't make it, and they were using my black ebony B3 on stage. The place used it all the time. So I found out that I went to Freddie's room, knocked on the door. I said, "Hey man, I'll play." And at that time, I was just coming into trying to become any kind of an semblance of a musician, let alone an organist. So he said, "Sure." So I got on stage, scared as hell, man. I was freaked out. And I got on stage, and voila, I did. It was short-lived because his guy came back, but the most glorious 3 or 4 months of my life doing that short run with him. Came back, and certain people had seen me play with Freddie. Certain people being Jerry Jeff Walker, the late country western icon. Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, et cetera, Harvey Mandel, God, who else? Harvey Mandel leads on to Jeff Beck, et cetera. So it moves on and on, but that's what kind of got me going. And then I started the group. I should back up. Prior to going out with Freddie, I had the group Blind Melon. We started the group Blind Melon. That was with young Eric Johnson. At the time, I think he was 15 maybe, but just amazing. It was, and we played at the Armadillo opening for several, at that time, pretty big groups. As a matter of fact, I remember opening up for John McLaughlin's Mahavishnu Orchestra, the very first one, with Billy Cobham and all of them. And that was amazing. Who else? I can't even remember, so damn long ago, but
well, I'll tell you, Rod.
Yeah.
I tell you, just something for our audience sake, just to back up a little bit. You talk about your experience starting Blind Melon. Well, a lot of people don't realize when you talk about Eric Johnson, and then you also had Roscoe Beck on bass. A lot of people don't realize that was the same Eric Johnson that went on to record Cliffs of Dover, got the 1991 Grammy Award for Best Rock Instrumental Performance, and Roscoe Beck went on to perform with one of my personal favorites, Stevie Ray Vaughan, Robin Ford, and Fender actually developed the Roscoe Beck bass guitar. A lot of people don't realize that. So you found them, I guess, in essence, or did you guys kind of just coalesce together, or how did that
coalesce together? Roscoe and Eric had been playing. Austin back then was such a great hamlet, man. I mean, it was just this infusion of so many great players coming through. Jimmy Vaughn and his group Storm. They would play, I think it was a place called Flight 505 and a couple of different places. And we used to go open the show for Jimmy Vaughn all the time. Stevie was kind of a blip at that time. Not even, he was a younger brother who used to get smacked around and get off stage, kid. You're not ready, And that's,
or did he ever get ready?
That's another story.
Yeah.
But I remember, and to this day, my big respect goes out to Jimmy Vaughn. Those were fun times, man. Yeah, Roscoe and Eric, I'm still very close with them, and we talk often.
It'd be nice if you did a little reunion trio. That would be awesome. And then the other thing I want to share with our audience too, you talk about knocking on Freddie King's door. I mean, let's make certain everybody knows whose door you were knocking on. He is known as one of the three kings of blues guitar, along with Albert King and B.B. King. none of them related.
Mhm.
But then that time that you spent with Freddie, you had started to allude to that, creating opportunities for you to work with like pianist Leon Russell, who played every genre known to man, vocalist Joe Cocker, who was a rock and blues singer. And you mentioned Willie Nelson, Waylon Jennings, both of country music. And then it was also Loudon Wainwright, the third you may have been thinking about. He was a folk singer. I mean, you talk about a diverse and wide range of genres. I guess the question I would have for you is, what was the aspect, or what were the key aspects of your musical background that enabled you to work across so many music genres? I mean, I know we can hear touches of gospel, jazz, rock, and blues when we hear your music, but what enabled you to be so, if I could use a current term, so fluid in terms of your musical style, or was it something else?
Well, basically, it was a verbal lesson which led to a physical lesson. Physical lesson being learning it, how to listen. There was an organ player, James Polk, that lived in Austin. Fabulous, soulful brother, played organ back then. And I would always laugh at this country stuff, man. We just cracked up. We're from California, man. Me and my boy, we're hanging out. I ain't playing that redneck stuff,
Right.
And that's where. And so James put me on point. He goes, "All right, young brother, tell you something. Can you play it?"
Ooh.
If I sat you right down right now and put on a song by, he named an artist, could you play this? Could you do what this piano player's doing? And I had to zip my lip. He put me on point, called me out on the carpet, and so I took up the challenge. I started listening to a lot of different things and understanding the dynamic. Musically, theoretically, I can't explain it to you because I'm not a music theorist.
Right.
But I was understanding the feel and where this genre was coming from. So I started practicing it and having a good time with it. We were in the studio one day and in comes Jerry Jeff Walker. And the first time I heard this phrase, he asked me, he says, "Hey man, you want to pick?" I said, pick what?
You go pick a strum.
Yeah,
Come
you want to pick? And so I wound up doing a record with the late, great Jerry Jeff Walker. And outside of our studio, right there on West 6th Street, there was a place right next to us. It was called the Sandwich Shop. And we used to practice all the time in the studio that we built right there in West 6th Street. And the guy that played guitar for tips was the great Michael Martin Murphy.
Wow. Incredible.
And we used to buy him food. Now the guy, I mean, if you do your research on Michael Martin Murphy, Geronimo's Cadillac, Wildfire, and all that stuff. And yes.
Well, sorry to interrupt you. We're at the time. This is fascinating, but we're obviously consciously aware of time and that. And what we're going to do now let's bring it forward a little bit. Now residing in the capital of California, about an hour from East Bay Area, you heard about a certain band. Tower of Power. You may have heard of them, all right? So you heard of this band. You went to see them perform several times before they added the keyboardist, Chester Thompson Smith. Now, you once quoted as saying, "When I saw Tower of Power with Chester Thompson, where no one sounded like him, and it was like a unique sound." Now, you took that place in 1998. Very briefly, I said, because we're going to play a piece of your music in a moment, and there's still so much to get through. So just elaborate briefly on that moment when you saw Tower of Power for the first time.
The very first time without Chester, that was in Sacramento. They had finally hit the big time and made it to Sacramento at the Warehouse. And they played this place, and I was just floored. I said, okay, I hope we don't have a lot of sensitive listeners out there, but I couldn't figure out how these white boys had so much soul, And they had one brother, Rick Stevens, was singing for them at that time. The second time I saw them was in San Antonio, opening for Creedence Clearwater Revival. Which,
wow.
I mean, go figure.
Yeah.
And the lights were on, and the people were booing the hell out of them. "Get off stage, we want Creedence," And I took all my guys down to see them, and we were afraid for our lives in this big arena because they were screaming. But when Chester came on board, I think not only for me, but it changed, at least in Northern California and the West Coast sound, the West Coast funk, that East Bay grease thing. It changed every organ player's way of thinking in terms of playing hybrid soul funk.
Yeah.
How do I, this is how I have to incorporate this organ in this band.
Yeah.
Just not a lot of smears and greasy stuff. It's like pocket stuff in there, tucked in with everything else. So it was a challenge once Chester got in the band. I think I can say this and speak for just about every organ player I know that followed that genre.
Yeah.
It was a challenge to all of them. Can you hang? Can you do this? This is what it is.
Well, Ed, word has it there's a small island in the South Pacific that they haven't heard of Tower of Power or Roger Smith, which is I find it quite surprising for myself. But anyway, they're out there. So what we're going to do, I'm going to take a brief. By the way, there's a whole section of Tower of Power in my wall up here. So along with your own music and that. So big fan, as I know Kevin is there. So what we're going to do, we're going to take a very quick interlude now, just to play aside. We've decided to pick a piece from your album, Just Enough. It's a fabulous album from 2004. I thought it was so appropriate with myself being Roger Lee, you being Roger Smith. We thought Roger's Groove. We thought that was a great way to give a taste of your wonderful talent. Ladies and gentlemen, we're watching and we're listening to the great Roger Smith of Tower of Power and his own, of course, solo career as well. We'll be back in 2 minutes time here on Jazz Across the Pond. We'll be straight back with you. Have a listen to this.
Welcome back to Jazz Across the Pond, Jazz Interviews Reimagined with the Jazz Cat and Mr. G. You've been listening to our wonderful guest, Mr. Roger Smith, performing Roger's Groove, how appropriate, from his 2004 project, Just Enough, an impressive track in a beautifully diverse project that samples Roger's multi-genre talents. Roger Lee, back to you.
Right, thank you very much. We're clarifying that. We're having two Rogers in the room, so we're just clarifying that. So, Roger, you are now working as a professional musician and a member of Sun Bear, which was a house band, an immensely popular television show. You held the position on the road with artists like Gladys Knight and the Pips, where you worked with several years. Jeff Beck, Jan Hammer, amazing stuff in that. Kevin, I know you want to jump in with a question now.
Yeah, I know that one of your friends, and we kind of talked about how you were able to listen to Tower of Power before you even began to imagine you might be part of the band, but one of your friends was multi-instrumentalist Norbert Satchel, who was performing with Tower of Power as their lead tenor sax player at a time when the band was making a few personnel changes. Now, Norbert suggested that the members of Tower of Power swing by your concert. I think you were in Tahoe, and the band fell in love with your stage presence, your keyboard chops, and your versatility. The band extended an invitation to you, and you've been Tower of Power's keyboard player ever since 1998. Now, you once said that while on stage with Tower of Power, you experience many different emotions, and when everyone is in the pocket, it's the best feeling there is. So now you're coming up on just shy of 25 years with the band. What is it about your experience with Tower of Power that keeps it fresh and brings you so much joy?
You know, it's even though we've played those songs countless times, it's amazing how I can speak for the rhythm section. We always, especially Garibaldi and I, because we've been, Dave and then myself in that rhythm section have been the longest. We've changed guitars. We've had different bass players. God bless Rocco, we lost him. But we've had several different bass players, and I've had to kick bass too when either one of them were sick. But it's the challenge to execute these parts as precise as you can without phoning it in, without overcounting or overthinking, but feeling it with soul. And it's every time we play it, it's always different. Every night, it's never the same. And that's always been the challenge. So I think for me, that's no matter how many times I'll play What Is Hip or Can't You See, it's always a challenge to bring the best forward in those songs.
Amazing. Well, I said, Kevin and myself, both big fans of yourself, but also Tower of Power. So touring exclusively with Tower of Power, you get to all parts of the US, Europe, and Asia. Now, you still find time to play gigs on Northern America, the north part of America, with musicians, and you also have a very successful solo career with a fabulous catalogue of incredible CDs. We have My Colors, a brilliant album, the 360. Oh yeah, and I mean they go on Sitting Down, and there's some. They're all brilliant albums. So how do you find time to work on your solo career as well as working, much in demand, touring around the world with Tower of Power? And how are your fans of Tower of Power describe your solo work different from the band work?
Well, the band work Tower, there's only one Tower of Power, and it's over here by itself from anyone else. There's no other Tower of Power. There's nobody like it.
Nope.
My stuff mine's more adult contemporary, but I kind of tend to be a little rebel even in that genre, where a lot of my contemporaries in the smooth jazz area go, well, yeah, it's smooth, but it's not quite, it doesn't quite fit this, but it's almost fitting it, but that's okay with me. I worked with Peter White for a long time, from whom I've learned so much. Richard Elliott, who's he's an alumnus of Tower of Power. Huge Groove is an alumnus of Tower of Power. Yeah. Rick Braun, all those guys.
Greg Adams,
of course. Yeah. So there, you have so many people, but my style of music is, I don't know how to describe it. It's just like I play what I feel, I do what I do, and I'm not looking at trying to fit into a slot. I never have.
And you've been successful at
Yeah, sorry. I learned that from my guys in Tower of Power. That's what I learned from Emilio and Doc. They write what makes them feel good.
Right.
And I said, you know what? That's what I'm going to do. If it works, it works. If it fits in that square peg, great.
Well, you know what? That round peg, square hole, round peg, whatever. There's no doubt. I mean, your song "Off the Hook" reached #1 on the charts, while the project "Both Sides" rode Billboard's top 10 contemporary jazz chart for 17 weeks.
Yeah.
So obviously, you know, you don't need to worry about whether it's a square peg or a round peg. It's going to fit, brother, no matter what. So
now I'm going to jump in here because our listening base is growing every week as we have more. Peter White was a former guest, and
Congratulations, by the way, for you guys. Congratulations.
thank
that's
you.
very, very kind of you. Thank you. It was an idea concept we came up with, and it seems to work very, very well. So we thank you very much for that. Now, we are going to thank you even more because you have allowed us to have a world, get this, world, not an England, Europe, but a world premiere of a track which is still ready to be finally cleaned and mastered, all the rest of it. But you've allowed us to play just a couple of minutes of it to tease your fans. We're not even going to play the whole, we're just going to play a couple of minutes just to tease them. Ladies and gentlemen, have a world premiere on Jazz Across the Pond. This is Roger Smith from a new project called Down Easy. Have a listen to this. Ladies and gentlemen of Jazz Across the Pond, we have just had a world premiere from our guest artist tonight, Roger Smith. It's called Down Easy. We couldn't even allow you to have the whole thing because we'd have been taken off air. So we could only play half of it. It's that secretive. We can't wait to listen to the rest. Roger, thank you so much for allowing us to have that first taster of it. It is fabulous.
My pleasure. Thank you for playing.
Now, talking about fabulous, we've spoken about your amazing work with Tower of Power. We've spoken about your amazing work as a solo artist, #1 on Billboard, work with this artist, work with that artist. Look, I'm going to raise my glass now because let's not forget that, of course, you have a very, very successful wine vineyard, okay, which we really, when in California, okay, we'd like to elaborate. Unfortunately, I'm not drinking one of yours at the moment. This is I don't know what it is. Anyway, so tell us more about that, Roger.
Bump City.
Well, long and short of it, it's Bump City. Here it is right here's the bottle of it. This is our blend. This is the Bump City Red. Okay. And what we have, our acreage and our production facility is located in Sonoma, California, right there in the heart of Carneros. And world famous grapes. We have about 9 or 10 different varietals. I won't even bore you with it all. Our tasting room is located in Clarksburg, California, along with 14 other wineries in a place called the Old Sugar Mill. So if somebody wanted to really check us out, they could go to bumpcitywincompany.com.
Awesome.
Right. I'm going to make a note of that. That is incredible. I don't know how you find time to do that, but
really,
certainly.
Well, you know, unfortunately, with the COVID thing, time just happened to be on my side, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Now, just to bring it back a little bit, I do want to touch on this, and hopefully you're okay with this one here. In 1996, playing the Hammond organ, you released your own debut album, an album called My Colour. During this time of this album, the making, you very, very sadly lost your son and your father. And it was reflected in the actual album. The album became, it was an emotional turmoil. It added a darker edge to it. Incredible how you managed to get through, and really, it is a brilliant album. Can you just talk about the album and what you went through then to release and put your emotions into this album?
It's kind of difficult, but yeah, it was. I'll put it succinctly. It starts with a party, and basically ends with a prayer. It starts with Miss Wiggles, which is like a party, just jumping right into it, having a doggone good time. And it ends with my dear friend Ricky Peterson and Ben Sidran's tune, Put Your Faith in Me.
Right. Oh, wow. Beautiful.
And everything in the middle kind of, like in my first foray into anything, I was trying to project how I was feeling from beginning to end.
So a good catharsis project. Beautiful. Okay.
Yeah, amazing. Kevin, I know you want to ask a question.
If we have enough time, can I squeeze one in?
You certainly have, yes.
Okay, so Roger Smith, as opposed to Roger Lee, I have a couple of quick questions, if I might, talking about your Jazz Roscoe projects.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in 2004, you released the CD Roscoe's Place, which was a great project, and my favorite track is Preface to Insanity. I thought that was a great track. In 2010, you follow it up with another solid epic, which is Roscoe's Place 2, and One Size Fits All is an outstanding track. With that round peg square hole thing going on. Now I heard through the grapevine that you were anticipating a third Jazz Roscoe project that was supposed to be released back in 2014, but that didn't materialize. So real quick, I'm an avid Jazz Roscoe fan. Is Jazz Roscoe Place 3, is that on the horizon? So that's the first part. Second, could you tell us some of the artists that you've been listed on those prior projects? And then finally, now I've not read this anywhere, but did you select the name Jazz Roscoe as a nod to the legendary blues singer, songwriter, and pianist Roscoe Gordon by any chance? That's just something, I guess.
Okay, to answer the last question, no. Jazz Roscoe is a dear friend of mine. We served in the service together.
Oh, beautiful.
I'm paying homage to him. And I'll leave it at that. So all three of these records for him. The musicians that I'm choosing to use on this next one, pretty diverse. Reaching out all over the place for this one. Of course, David Garibaldi is going to be on it. I have Rocco Prestia, the entire Tower of Power group from 2001 is on this particular one. I'm going to use the guys, Jerry Lopez's group, Santa Fe Horns. I don't know if you guys ever heard of them. There's a tune that I did for Sly Stone, If You Want Me to Stay. It's like Count Basie's big band meets Sly Stone. That's the arrangement. It's amazing. So I'm putting that together. The arrangement's all done, and that's what a premiere of Roscoe's Place 3.
Wow.
Bring it, brother. Bring it. Bring it.
And we want to hear it first.
You shall have it.
Oh, fabulous. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us here. Tower of Power. Last year, there was the Soul Side of Town, a brilliant, brilliant Tower of Power album. The most recent one was Step Up, another great album. We're going to finish the interview with a track from Roger Smith, Just Another Day, another brilliant album. And we're going to play this out with the titles at the end. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been watching Jazz Across the Pond, Jazz Interviewing Reimagined. We cannot thank you enough. Ladies and gentlemen, a massive round of applause and a thank you to the wonderful, the man himself, Mr. Roger Smith.
Thank you, Roger.
Thank you, guys.
And Kevin, say goodnight, Kevin.
Good night, Kevin.
Yes, and it's good night from him. From everybody here, ladies and gentlemen, on the Jazz Across the Pond. Next week, another brilliant interview. But meanwhile, we take our head after the man, Tower of Power, wine connoisseur, winemaker, solo artist, incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to leave the interview now with the wonderful piece from that album. It's the wonderful Roger Smith.
Put some pimpin' in it, girl. I'm thinking while I'm drinking, the way you walking, girl, is stinking. You so funky, just like the groove I hear. Give me your hand so I can pull you closer than near. Ow. Girl, just hold on. Take you home. I'm just here to dance with you all night long. Might seem I'm a little too bold, but you the chick I chose. I'm just here trying to get my second wind.